Dear viewers, I know you love deck and fights for Zero. I know you love watching fight content, and well, this game is the perfect thing for that, because going into our next few videos throughout the week, I want to show you what updated versions of the start decks that you can pick in Dear Days look like, and of course what they perform like in the ranked ladder as well, so you have an idea of how they play and basically how they work and why you play certain cards and don't play certain other cards. So hopefully this video will help to a lot of the new players, and of course if you like this kind of content, please do give it a like. And I checked recently and I saw that about like 37 or 38% of you are not subscribed, so if you're liking the content, please subscribe to the channel and do support it. I do appreciate it very, very much. But today, I want to take a look at the first deck that I built in Dear Days to completion, which I think is honestly the best one for cruising through early story mode, which is Bavsargra. So Bavsargra, of course, is one of the starter decks, and she is a very good one. So she's from Dragon Empire, and she has two skills. First one is that when you arm her, which is her like special kind of gimmick that she can equip weapons, you soul charge one and choose a grade 1 or less from your drop and revive it to rear. And then once per turn, if you have 2 or more cards armed, you can soul blast 2 and retire your opponent's entire front row, which doesn't target, so it bypasses cards that say like this card can be targeted. And she also gets a critical, which is really, really strong. So she's basically a really cool card that attacks for big power because of her support card Trick Moon, gets an extra crit, and just like controls the opponent, which is really, really strong. But then moving on, let's take a look at the arms. So we have 2 that we get in the starter deck, the best one of which is Swayambhu. So Swayambhu is the shield that we call, and it costs -1 to play it. And once per turn, it gives the Vanguard the skill that when the unit armed with this card is attacked, so your Vanguard, you can give it plus 10k power for that battle. And this skill, the first time it procs is not compulsory, right? So you can choose, let's say, like sometimes your opponent will attack you with like a low power unit, you can choose not to use this. Or like if there's an attack you want to use, like you want to take, you can choose to just like not activate the skill and then activate it later. That's kind of how once per turn effects work in Vanguard. So that allows you to skip it, but the plus 10k that you get for that one battle is really huge because that saves like 2 cards or 1 card in hand, which is really nice. The other card we play as a one of is the Prithvi. So Prithvi is played by Soul Blasting 1 on the right deity arms, so they go on her like left and right hand. So this one technically goes on the left side of the card, but it's her right hand, if that makes sense. So when the unit that is armed with its attacks, it gets plus 10k power, and then at the end of the battle, if your opponent's damage is 4 or less, you can count +2 and put this to the drop to deal them 1 damage. So for those of you that watch the anime, of course, you know exactly what that looks like, but this card is actually not that good, right? You only play this because it's searchable, and basically if you don't open the spear, which is the best weapon, then you will arm this. But you almost never want to use that -2 to put it to drop skill, because -2 is actually really heavy, because you actually lose out on effects that you want to be using your for, and like dealing the damage isn't really that important because this is a deck that the main grade 3 gains a crit almost every turn, which means you can choke your opponent 4 damage so they don't get more damage to use their effects with, because for every counterblast you give them, that's how much more they can do with their resources. So you can choke them at 4, just like swing with Bavsargra with the extra crit, and then if you check a crit, you can put it on your rear guards and then try to like keep them at 4 and just choke them out of the game and drain their resources. So the best weapon we have is the Aditya, and Aditya is also played by counterblasting 1. It goes on the same side as the sword, and it says when you arm it, you draw a card, you can play an additional arms this turn. So this is the only card that we play that allows us to arm twice on turn 3. So you arm the spear for +1, and then you can arm the shield after that for another +1. And it also gives a plus 10k to the Vanguard, just like the sword, which is really, really nice. So it is by far the best weapon, and like even in the later stages of the game, you can still equip this later down the line because it lets you always draw a card, which is very nice. And you can even equip 2 of them in 1 turn if you want to, because also equipping means that Bavsargra gets to revive something, and reviving is good because that is it's a free card that you get as well. And of course, now that we've talked about the weapons, let's talk about the ride line. So we have Arhinsa as the grade 0. It does the same thing as all starters. When you go second and ride over it, you draw a card. And then we have the, oops, didn't mean to do that. And then we have the Namokar. So Namokar says when you ride it over Arhinsa, you soul blast 1 and then search for either Prithvi or Swayambhu and add it to your hand. Usually you're always going to search the shield from this. You don't really need the sword. It's very important that you have the shield, and that's why you run them as one-ofs. Because if you open one of them, you can just search the other. And then we have the grade 2, which is also a very good card, which is Halibadara. So when you ride this, you can choose an arms from your drop and add it back to your hand. So basically, when you ride into this card, you can discard the shield that you searched for the cost, and then just take it back to hand. So you're revealing as little information to your opponent as possible, which is very nice, right? And then the most important card that we have in the deck in my opinion, is Trick Moon. So Trick Moon is like the support for Bavsargra. It has an effect that when it's placed on your back row center rearguard circle from drop, it countercharges 1. So basically, if you pay the counter plus 1 to play the spear, you can and then revive this behind the Vanguard, it immediately refunds the cost of that. So even if you just have one counter blast, you can equip both weapons, which is really cool. And it has the dress boost keyword, which says when it boosts, the boosted unit gets plus 10k power until the end of the battle for each card that Bavsargra is armed with. So if you have double arms, then this is boosting for 25k on every battle that it boosts. So it's huge. This also can work with rearguards too. And then we have a few other good support cards. So of course, we have the beautiful Travis. Travis says, rearguard circle once per turn. If your opponent's rearguard was retired this turn by Bavsargra's effect, you can get almost with the soul charge 1 and then retire an opponent's rearguard and give him plus 10k. So he's a big beater, he soul charges, which means that even if you don't get arms or persona rides back to back to keep your 2 soul for every turn to like retire your opponent's front and get an extra crit, he will help you sustain that, which is very important. And then we also play 4 copies of Aoshinya. So this is the first card that we're showing that's not in the starter deck or in set 4. This is in Fighters Collection 2, and basically what this card says is when you call it, you do the following depending on what you have. So if you have the right deity arms, you get plus 10k for free, which is really cool. And then if you have left deity arms, you can count plus 1 to revive a grade 1 or less. So that means you can actually revive a second Trick Moon if you have it, or revive something like an effect critical, which when it boosts, it can go to the soul to give something plus 2k, so that gives you soul for Bavsargra, or you can revive one of our other cards that we have, such as the one-of that we run of Samsara, who is a 13k and an intercept when you have both cards armed as well. So that's also very nice. And then the last card to finish it off is the Fushima Madoka, which is a decent card. It is a 10k power and 10k or 15k shield depending on how big your opponent's drop zone is, which is really cool. And it's also active on your opponent's turn, which is really strong. And then of course to round it off, we have our 3 regular perfect shields and then the 1 copy of the Order perfect shield, which is the Elementaria Sanctitude. So this card is also perfect shield, but it lets you basically play to the perfect shield without paying the discard 1 cost when your opponent's Vanguard is using a grade 4 deck. So Ranked is infested with those, so you're going to be wanting to have the 1 copy of this, which is also promo, but you can craft it for, I think, 400 CP for the first craft, so it's actually not that bad. And then our trigger lineup is 8 crit, 3 draw, and 4 heals, and 1, of course, Dragon Empire Overtrigger, because we want to be checking crits on our rearguard circles and just choking out our opponent, or just kind of like swinging games in our favor in general. Oh yes, and also a very important note from chat, this also gets around guard restrictions, so if you play against anything on ladder that says like your opponent has to guard with 3 cards at the same time, or your opponent cannot sentinel, this can, because it doesn't get played to the Guardian Circle, you cast it as an order, and it goes to your drop zone, so it's a bit different. So, with the whole deck being explained, let's take a look at some games. I think we'll play 1 or 2 games depending on their length, so you see how the deck is played, and just in general, get a taste for what Bavsargra looks like at the top level. And you can see I'm on a 9-win streak. I've been playing a lot of Nirvana in ladder and having a lot of fun with it, and definitely been really enjoying myself. So let's see who we run into, and try out Bavsargra in action. Alright, we found opponents. Let's get it and see what they are going to be playing as well. Alright, the first and most important is, of course, rock, paper, scissors. Choose paper. Ooh, to draw. I believe in them choosing paper again. We got it. Going first with this deck is good because you can kind of overwhelm them with your Trick Moon. So the mulligan in this deck is pretty simple. You first have to have Trick Moon and the Spear. Everything else does not matter. So just toss full everything just to make sure you have a chance to pull the Spear first and Trick Moon after, because if you don't have the Spear, your deck slows down like crazy, you lose out on a lot of your momentum, so it's really, really important. And then when you discard for your right deck, you actually want to be discarding grade 1s early, because that's what Bavsargra is going to be reviving for you too. So we're going to pay the cost here and search out the shields. Now we have our double equip ready for turn 3, which is very nice. So this is kind of like the early moves. Of course, going first, we can't attack, so we're going to just search and basically just pass. So that's going to be it for this turn. Next turn you can choose to like attack, depending on like who you're playing against, you can aggro a little bit to try to push them to 2 on turn 2, so that on turn 3 you can try to like force out the perfect guard from them. So there's definitely a lot of different ways to play this. And it looks like we're playing against, I'm not going to say MLB yet, because a lot of Phantom Blaster Overlords also play the Marin and Blast, like the Marin ride line, but then change it into something else later down the line. Now, we're playing a deck that doesn't really need too much CB if we open Trick Moon, but if we don't, I need to take 1 damage here and then 1 damage next turn, so we're going to actually no guard here to eat this. If he crits me, so be it, but he doesn't. Alright, that's a card I haven't seen in a while. That is actually, I think it can call itself out, no? Yeah, it does, oh my god. That came out of nowhere, bro. Alright, But we hit a defensive, so it doesn't matter. We shut down that offensive real quick, and we're good. So now that Ryu does not hit anymore, so I have to pass. And it's actually a little bit dangerous, because here what I could choose to do is to damage deny them. And then here, of course, for the grade 2 turn, we always want to be ditching the shield, and then getting it back right after from the grade 2. So we're showing the least amount of information to our opponent possible, which is also very, very important. So here, I don't really want to commit a booster, but I'm assuming my opponent might be playing Bavsargra Dark next turn, which will get rid of one of my rear, so here you want to be a bit careful and not play down anything else. So we're gonna choose to give damage. I'm gonna expect the Bavsargra Dark next turn, but I'll choose to give damage. And they're gonna take it. We check a draw, which is pretty nice. We like that. Extra card advantage is always nice, and we drew into a crit. Would have liked to check that a little bit more, but it's fine. And then deal the first damage and see where we go with this. He also gets a draw, which is pretty nice as well. So that's gonna be balancing out both of our hands. And then we're gonna see what deck is he really playing, because so far none of his drive checks have really shown us anything. So let's see if the Bavsargra Dark is gonna come out here or not, or if this is actually Majesty Lord Blaster, which oh, it is Blaster Blade. Okay, it is actually Majesty Lord Blaster. First time I face off against it in ranked, but of course I'm gonna get to draw a card here from Blaster Blade. So that's pretty good. This art is also very nice. The 10th anniversary art that came out this April. It's very pretty. So now I can use Marin to check top 7 for a Blaster, which is also pretty good. So we can take a look at what the card does. So basically when you write it, you look at top 7 for a grade 2 with Blaster in its name, and then add it to your hand. If you didn't reveal one, you just call out a Wingull Ray from your soul, which you did. Calls out the Mugain, who of course can discard 1 and then look at top 2 and call them its rest, which I feel like is not really that great in Majesty Lord Blaster. Damn, he opened a lot of orders. Alright. Let's see what this Mugain can find. I still, you know, discard 1 to get 2 cards out. Ooh, not when it's an OT plus your perfect guard. That's not great. That's not what you want to see whatsoever. Alright, so my opponent's side attack is going to be 21 without triggers, so I'm going to hopefully don't check a trigger here because they'll make guarding that very hard. They do not. Okay, cool. They are running Emmeline, which of course is a very good promo card for blasters. Or we just check a PG, which we have 2 in hand, so we're kind of okay here. We have our 2 counterblast that we need, so honestly we don't really need another CB for next turn. Although I could take a third and get rid of the back row for next turn. But then our damage difference is a little bit too high for my liking. So I think here we're going to want to just guard, basically. And then just not aggress too much with the Travis. If we can top deck a Trick Moon this turn, that'd be really huge. Because basically, finding Trick Moon would allow us to abuse a lot of counterblast in one turn. We don't, sadly. But let's ride into Bavsargra. I'm going to ditch the draw because it's the lowest amount of shield in my hand right now that I can discard. And then let's see what we draw off of the spear here. So we're going to activate the effect. Drawing into Fushimachi Madoka, that's not too bad. Let's use Bavsargra here as well to soul charge a Fushimachi Madoka and then revive the one we discarded in turn 1. So this allows us to push a little bit. Our opponent's drop is still at 3, so we haven't actually gained the power yet, but after we counterblast for this, and of course use Bavsargra's effect, we'll be able to retire the front row, which puts the drop zone to 5, which means that Fushimachi Madoka will gain its power, which is also quite nice. So here I think I'm gonna choose to aggress a little bit harder. Because we're going first, we can kind of choose to be a little bit greedier with this as well. So we're gonna go into battle, swing with Fushimachi Madoka first to try to force out a 5k shield, or for them to take it. They're gonna take it. That's interesting. Let's see if they hit defensive. That'll make guarding against my attack a bit easier. They do not. Emmeline is gonna be found. And then this is gonna be kind of annoying because basically now we're still in heal range because we're on 2. And the opponent can't just afford to take it because if I double crit it's over, but I guess they will. Interestingly enough. They're gonna go up to 5 already. Of course, I'm not super high on power on the side, but it's still gonna be a 30k column, so they need to hit 2 triggers for this to be a 5k to guard, or 3 to make it not pass. That is 1. And then that's 2. And yes, I see that my camera froze, which is kind of odd that it's doing that already. Allow me to inspect a little bit. Alright, looks like my camera's gonna just stay frozen. My opponent checks no defensives, which is weird. Now they must have a lot of triggers in hand then. Alright, 30k going into the Vanguard here. Alright, they're gonna use Elementario in order to Perfect Guard. So that's gonna take out the free PG from their hand already, which is pretty shocking, to be honest. Pretty surprising. Alright, well, let's see. In the meantime, while my opponent is doing that, I will try to see if I can fix my camera. I don't know why the cam link on YouTube for some reason on my OBS sometimes it just freezes up like this, and it's honestly quite odd. Cool Tower C with the tier 1 for 3 months. Appreciate it. Alright, well, for now, enjoy my frozen face until I have time to fix this. Maybe I should get my PNG tuber, get a PNG tuber emergency setup on the side just for these situations, because I wonder if I'm missing like a driver or something on this new computer. So for context, I only built this new computer very recently, and we basically do not have... Oh! Look at that. My camera's gone entirely. So that probably means it'll come back eventually. So for the time being, until it does, we're gonna choose to go cameraless for a little bit and await its return to normalcy. Alright, so my opponent drew rode their Magic Lore Blasters. That means that they will be able to get their extra drive on attack. Let me check the board here and see. They're attacking with 15, so I don't really need to block this. I only have like 5k shields, so I could actually take this and make guarding the rest a bit easier. So I think we're gonna choose to just no guard this and see what comes out of it. So we get a defensive, nice. So that does make guarding a little bit easier for the rest of the turn. Let's see where that takes us to. 23k on our Vanguard now is of course going to be very good. And they're going to be swinging. This allows them to put 2 rears into the soul, and of course Emmeline also gets a power up. So this is a card that isn't actually out in English TCG yet. She's a promo here in Japan that came out some time ago, and she's very good. Alright, there's a retire. Ooh, choosing not to go for the full retire, interestingly enough. 21k, I feel like I can just use this to make it 2 to pass. And I think we'll make it 3 to pass with this. So I think this works out just fine. My player time is also running low, bit by bit. Need to be careful and aware of that. Ooh, they're really doing a lot of work with this 1 grade 3. Basically just pushing out as an attacker. Gets the heal as well, which is pretty huge, but goes down to 4, which is still a pretty good position for me. The problem is also that they call this out. Surprised they didn't call it out to the front row. Ooh, gets the crit too. It's pretty good. So that makes that rearguard column pretty huge. It's 48k power, which is a little bit scary. I could just choose to take it and then be in heal range and kind of choke them out of a 5th damage heal, which is pretty good. So 48 gonna swing into Vanguard. It's technically guardable with 2 15s. But honestly, part of me wants to just take it. So I think we just take this. We want to go to 5 so that when we check our heals, they actually activate. Alright, there's nothing there. We have Persona Ride for next turn too, and they've got a 4-card hand, so I'm feeling pretty good about this overall. Let's take a look at where we can take this. So we're going to put the power to the Vanguard, of course. It doesn't really matter because we already took damage. And see where we take this to. So we have Persona Ride and an Equip. That's a pretty big top deck. Let's Persona Ride. So that's going to get us an extra draw. Still no Trick Moon, which is definitely a little bit unfortunate. We're going to re-equip the Spear, just to also revive something from the drop real quick. You know, keep those grade 1s going. I think we just drew another weapon as well. Ooh, not the heal. That's not too great. Alright, let's call another Fushima Chimadoka. And we can call Travis here as well. We have 3 soul. So then next turn, if we equip the sword, we can basically have things ready to go. But for now, let's use Bavsargra skill and basically just retire our opponent's front row and get that extra crit. And I think with that, we're quite okay to go in. I think... don't really need to use Travis, to be honest, because, like... I guess with the 4-card hand, the power gain is actually pretty appreciated. So let's do it. Travis time. Make use of it. And I guess I'll pop this because it can hit on its own without boost. So if he does survive here, that would be appreciated. So let's go battle phase. We can swing with Vanguard first here because, of course, they cannot take this. They will lose. So it's a 33k, and this is a 1 to pass. Oh no, right. They get plus 2k from Majesty Lore Blaster, so it's actually 2 to pass. Alright, we get a crit. How are we so good at this game? I do not know. Alright, we're going to go all in on this column here. So this way they're forced to basically drop their whole hand or perfect guard it. And then if I have to put in the 5th damage into the face, I will do that too. But let's take a look. Gonna swing in. 50k power with the extra crit. Do we have a perfect guard in hand? We do not. So then this will be lethal normally. If they don't heal on 6th damage. That's the last Emmeline, I think. Followed by a heal trigger. Alright. Looks like our opponent is going to survive this turn. So 3-card hand going into next turn. We're still okay. I mean, we have plenty of shield in hand. That's kind of the strength of this deck, is that you have shield for days, and you're also in a position where you don't really use much of your hand because you're always basically always guarding with your shield and then like reviving stuff all the time. So that makes it quite good. Prime again. Blaster Blade. Can retire my Travis, which is a little bit annoying. So that makes guarding a little bit harder. And my Travis just keeps getting popped turn after turn after turn. So that's not as appreciated. Alright, it's gonna be 20k. I think we can just use a shield here. So we're at 5 damage, so of course have to guard everything. So that's gonna be the first attack done. Then we can drop the draw trigger to guard the Mugain, and then we can just perfect guard the MLB. MLB only attacks 3 times per turn, so no multi-attacks to surprise you basically, which makes it quite nice. And here of course I can put in the Blaster Blade to retire my back row. So it's a little bit annoying, but not the end of the world. And then here we're going to use the Perfect Guard and discard the Samsara, because it's a prime revive target for next turn, so this will be a Perfect Guard. Let's see what they're going to check. Draw trigger, that makes 28k on the side. So now we know there's a 10k shield in their hand from that draw. And let's see if they check another. Alright, they got a crit too. So I have to drop 2 cards to guard this attack, so we can just drop the heal and the crit, which is quite fine. We are still in a pretty good position, so 25k shield has been acquired to their hand, which means that you just kind of keep that in mind going into the next turn to know what your how much shield you can expect in your opponent's hand. So this will guard it, and then we'll go into our next turn with a sword in hand, which of course lets us revive something from the drop. Still no trick wounds though, and we're more than halfway through the deck, which is kind of unfortunate. Still none. That was a 6 damage heal in our hand as well. But for now, let's just try to equip the sword, and then Bavsargra's effect will of course allow us to soul charge 1, and then let's bring back the Samsara here. So this swings for a nice little number. Still haven't seen the overtrigger, I think, so that could come up. Could be nice. So we're gonna retire that, get the extra crit, and we have the plus 10k power as well from the sword. So yeah, this, if anything, this has been a pretty unoptimal game. Oh, I did actually misplay because MLB is 15k, so neither of my rears are hitting right now. So should have actually called to the other side. So Venom, Majesty Lore Blasters. Little buff is actually putting in a lot of work here. That's 2 to pass on my opponent's side. Ooh, that's a great 2. Would have loved to see in hand earlier. Fortunately didn't. And there's a trick one that we were sorely missing. And unfortunately, because we misplaced our units, that is actually going to be a pass. So our opponent dropped basically what they drive checked, and we just have to pass here. So luckily it's not the end of the world. They're basically going to just keep doing what they're doing, but they have to keep committing a lot of cards from hand to rebuilding their board, whereas for us, like, we didn't have to do that, which is also pretty nice. Well, I think he's going to use the order that he's been discarding quite aggressively to search Blaster Dark. Alright. Yeah, it was this order. And then let's see, Blaster Dark probably going to come into play. Let's take a look. Of course, Majesty Lore Blaster can put Blaster Dark into the soul to get a drive, which is a way to build hand, of course. And then, of course, this can potentially retire the Wingull that he has here. to retire one of my rears, which hopefully be this grade 1 because this has intercept. Yep, that is going to be the case. Now let's see if they call a booster behind MLB or not, because if not, it makes guarding a bit easier. Ooh, calls the 5k. That's not going to be doing anything, so... what if he's hoping for triggers on it at this point? I think in my case, I will not use this, but I will guard this with Trick Moon. So just a 5k, which makes it perfect. And then I think for us, we might want to play it safe and just perfect guard the MLB, but... with 2 cards in hand, I think... depends. Does this get more power? I don't think it does. We have seen the overtrigger, right? They called it earlier, so we can actually guard for safety here. So basically just do this for 38, so 25, 35. That'll be 3 to pass. I could just make it no pass just to play it safe. Yeah, I think I'll play it completely safe and overcommit a little bit on the shield here. So we'll go to 48, so this way, no matter how many triggers my opponent checks, like, they don't get tempted to put it to the Vanguard, then we can guard the rearguard column pretty easily. So even if he puts 2 triggers in the rearguard column, my 15k shield is still enough to guard it, so that is very huge. Alright, just the 1. And I think he has a 3rd drive. Alright, that's going to be an MLB, so that's a Persona Ride for next turn, which will be pretty nasty. So we do have to keep that in mind. And then here, you can basically just continue guarding, and then next turn, flap back with the Aoshinia. And that'll basically do it. So, that's going to be the end of the turn for my opponent. And let's see what we draw into. Alright, nothing to ride home about. So we're going to call out you, and then basically just build a board. So we want to spread our power evenly so that everything kind of hits. And so here, normally I would call the Trick Moon behind Vanguard to get the counter charge, but in this instance, I actually want to call it here so that this hits for like a big threatening number, because our Vanguard's already hitting for 23, so it's good enough, to be honest. And this way we're swinging for slightly better numbers, so that's good too. I think we'd even be going for a complete lethal here, so push. It's not really real point to call out the crit here, so let's just swing with the Bavsargra. She'll get the extra plus 10k from the sword, and see how my opponent's gonna guard this. And then now we have the Trick Moon in the back to push the extra power, the 20k on the side too. Alright, this is gonna be a 2 to pass, just like last turn. And let's see what we check. Travis. Again, another card we would like to see earlier. Trick Moon. We're definitely all showing up now at a time when they're not as needed. So let's keep on pushing the aggression with this 20k, asking for 10k shield from hand. Gonna drop the trigger. And do they have a perfect card in hand? Because we know one of the cards in hand is a Majesty Lord Blaster. That's gonna do it. I'm not sure if they do. So let's boost, and then here Trick Moon will be able to use its skill to push this above and beyond. Pushing it to 35, so we're gonna need a 25k shield to finish it up. Alright, we're gonna take it. Do we see a 6 damage heal again? Oh my god, how does he do it? How does he do it? 6 damage heal twice in a row, and he has Persona Ride next turn. That is impressive. That is very impressive, not gonna lie. How many heals? Is that the last one? That is the last one, yeah. Oh, he dares to declare final turn after doing that? That's nasty. This dude is a real protagonist. This dude is the real thing. I can't believe it. Alright, does he have more blasters? What you got, buddy? What you got for me, my friend? Let's see it. That's not gonna help him too much because it calls 2 cards off the top in rest state. So you don't want to be discarding a potential attacker to have the opposite of that. Looks like he's not paying the cost for that. Ooh, that's pretty nasty. 223k lines are gonna make it so that ooh, the 28 is actually really, really well done. So this line I can actually not guard. Actually cannot guard it at all. So what I have to do here is basically... Oh wait, he might clear out one of his own. Okay, I think he didn't. So here, I think he's only on 2 drives. So that means we can technically... Let's see, the other line is 23. I feel like I still have to 1 to pass this. And then PG the last one. Because if I want to pass this like so, we're at 28. If I add this, and then he puts triggers on this, then I can't guard both of them. So it's kind of risky, but essentially we have to 1 to pass this. And then, Reiki doesn't hit. Actually, no, we can't afford to do that. We actually have to 2 to pass it because he has a crit on this. So we're gonna have to depend on him getting a bit cheeky with his trigger checks. And potentially risk some to the Vanguard. So let's see what happens. First check, nothing. It's a perfect guard though. Pretty big. Second check. It's gonna be nothing. Alright. We are still fine. We survive with nothing in hand. We are still fine. And my opponent declared final turn on me. Which is impressive. But we are gonna show him that that is not the case. Guard is 28. And then the 1 card PG. See, like, it's the little things. Again, the reason... like, we almost won the game twice, 2-6 damage healed, and we're still able to survive, and that's just how tanky this deck is. I think this really shows just how tanky, Bavsargra really is. And yeah, I feel like my opponent might be out of triggers by now. They've been seeing so many that it's pretty crazy. It's honestly pretty crazy, but we managed to perfect guard this safely, guard against everything, and not worry about a thing. Final turn did not work out for my opponent, and we have a way to pull off more power. I'm gonna call final turn this time. I'm done messing around. It is time to bring on the pain train. Call out the Oshinya, get the extra power on it. No revive because we don't have counterblast for it, and we're gonna just go into battle here. Almost want to attack with the lower powers first, but I feel like we're not going to be seeing any more 6 damage healing action over here. So let's swing with a 23k. I don't expect any more final heals now because all of them are out. The overtrigger on my opponent's side is also out. My overtrigger isn't out of anything, so I have a chance to see mine. We see a spear. Alright, no, we've been checking blanks for 3 turns in a row, which would normally be lethal for most decks. And so now, no more last damage heals. That is going to be game on our opponent's side. A good match overall for sure. And definitely well played on both sides. It was a pretty close one. So GG's, and hopefully that showed. You know, not so much what Trick Moon can do for the deck, but definitely what the rest of the deck is very much capable of. Alright, we managed to fix the camera issue, so hopefully that showed you all, dear viewers, what Bavsargra can do. I think the game itself was actually super high quality, so I'm glad we managed to get that in one go. Of course, opening Trick Moons and stuff is much stronger and makes the power of the deck much higher, but I think that did show off the deck quite well. So up next, we'll be taking a look at Nirvana, so make sure you tune into that if you pick Nirvana as your starter deck, and hopefully this helps a lot of you starting out players that are playing Dear Days and playing Vanguard for the first time ever with some of the decks that you can build. And we'll be taking a look at much more once we're done with all the starter decks. I'm going to take a look at some of my own favorite decks that aren't just, you know, like related to the starter decks that I think some of you will also enjoy, and I think Dear Days presents a really nice way to show off a lot of cool decks and how they play in this format as well. So with that, that is going to be it for me today. If you liked the video, please do give it a like, and if you haven't already, please do subscribe. But otherwise, I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.